Hello, nerds. We're Russian today. Generally nerdy. This show is The Week in Nerdom. It happens twice a week, and this is the intro. Alright, we're blasting through all of the news. Potentially going to start working on a new series for the channel. Reviler is a watcher, listener. He found me through other means and is super active in comments and stuff and gave me a really cool idea. So gaming-wise, we potentially are going to be developing a new show, but that really depends a lot on revenue and things like that. So until then, that's kind of in the back workings. Nothing can move forward just yet, but as things get set in place and we can go forward with that, I will definitely fill you in a little bit more. But if you follow the Instagram, you probably already have at least an idea of what I'm talking about. And we're talking about music right now, and we have 3 new videos and a follow-up on the Times of Grace thing. So we're going to talk new videos / music, and the first one is As I Lay Dying. They just put out Shaped by Fire, which is also the name of their new record that's coming out that they are going on a world tour to support. And it's actually not bad. I'm not the biggest fan of As I Lay Dying, but the stuff that they've put out since reforming, since, Lambesis got out of prison... has been surprisingly better. Not necessarily great by any stretch of the word, but listenable. And I can't necessarily say that too much about the stuff pre-prison. So, I don't know, maybe prison was a good thing for Lambesis. Next, we're talking about a new song from Hellyeah. It's called Perfect. It's off the most recent single off of Welcome Home, which is their first record without Vinnie Paul. Rest in peace. And this is more of them just trying to be radio metal, and I really am not a big fan of this kind of stuff, but it is still Chad Gray, and, being as he is the vocalist for one of my favorite bands ever, we will probably continue to talk about Hellyeah until they get good, and that just isn't right now, and we're moving on to the next piece, which is another surprising song. Norma Jean is putting out a new record. The new record is called All Hail. It's out October 25th. The name of the song is Mind Over Mind, which is also the video you can find in the description. Links to all of these are going to be down in the description. I really hate Norma Jean. And this is actually not a terrible song. Every now and then they do find a little bit of listenable material to write. This is actually one that I would potentially put on rotation on like Spotify or something. So definitely worth a listen. Go check out the video again. Links to everything is in the description. And then our last piece is the follow-up to Times of Grace that I teased at the beginning of the section. The Times of Grace record that we talked about that is in active production right now with Adam D. and Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage. Adam just came out within the last few days and said, we might just release what we have as an EP and then forego the full-length record so that we don't have to have the fans wait much longer for new material, because like I said last time, they've been working on this material since 2017, and the Times of Grace record, the last Times of Grace record, the Hymn of a Broken Man, came out in 2011, so it's been 8 years since we've heard Times of Grace stuff, and it's actually, the Times of Grace, even though it doesn't differentiate greatly from Killswitch, is still pretty good, and relatively unique in its own way. But yeah, that's a pretty cool update, and then we're kicking on to our next section. And TV news, TV and movies, while not as big as they were necessarily last episode, still pretty sizable because it is that time of the year. So because it is that time of the year, people are talking, things are happening, and we have a lot of things to discuss. So we're going to try and cover them as quickly as possible. And first things first, we have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It seems that in the final season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., there is a rumor that Hailey Atwell and her Agent Carter castmates are going to be making an appearance, or appearances. The rumor was not specific. But according to the rumor, we will be seeing them in this final season, and I feel like the better option would have been to include Samuel L. Jackson because, he is the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., so why would you not have... Whatever. That would tie it up into the MCU the most tight and proper way in my head, and I feel like in a lot of fans' heads, so it doesn't make sense that you would... yeah, sure, it's a minor fan service when we could have done a major fan service and paid Samuel L. just a little bit of money to show up for 5 friggin' seconds in... But whatever. I'm ranting, we're moving on. Next, we're talking about Jeffrey Dean Morgan in The Walking Dead Season 10. We are getting teases from Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So some of the fans, a fair contingent of the fandom, was thinking that based on the trailers we've got so far for The Walking Dead that do include Negan, that we're going to be getting a redemption arc in Season 10 for Negan. But Jeffrey Dean Morgan says otherwise. He was talking to comicbook.com, says this is not going to be Negan's redemption arc. It doesn't necessarily sound like the writers are going to give Negan a proper redemption arc because Negan is Negan, and I'm excited to see what exactly happens in the next season. Next, we're talking about the Spider-Verse, and no, not the animated movie, but the cinematic Spider-Verse at large. Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who directed the Spider-Verse movie, are being brought in by Sony to develop live-action TV series for the 900 properties that they have from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So all of the spider-related stuff, they're developing, not all 900. Let's be quite frank. It's not going to be that extensive, but some of the larger names, they're going to be developing live-action series for them, streaming series very likely, which is kind of goes in the face of what we've talked about in the past, in that because we knew they were going to be doing this, Sony was going to be doing this, we figured that it was based on the Spider-Verse universe, if you will. So it was going to be animated. So I'm passing this one off to you guys. What do you think about live action Spider-Verse stuff versus going animated whole hog? Next is another update. We talked about this. It's been a couple of months at this point. The Y the Last Man series that is going over to FX. Brian K. Vaughn, the series creator, the comic book creator, with I can't pronounce his co-creator's name, and I apologize to her for that. Starts with a P. Didn't write it down. My notes sometimes are not the best. I apologize. Anyway, so Y the Last Man, Brian K. Vaughn took to his Instagram to give us an update saying that he just left the writer's room. It is still in active development, though they have not started production. That doesn't necessarily matter because the plan is still to have it out in 2020, which is kind of freaking awesome that they are still on track, even though we haven't heard anything from them for a while. And that's the end of TV. Let's kick over to movies. Movies, we got a couple of smallish updates around Venom 2. Yes, we already know Andy Serkis is directing, but Serkis came out and said that not only is he directing, but he's directing a script that is being developed by the original scriptwriter Kelly Marcel and Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy is very active, according to Serkis, or very much involved, quote-unquote, according to Serkis, that with the script writing process. So that could be very interesting, because Tom Hardy is one of the... If anybody knows the character that Tom Hardy created for Eddie Brock, then it would be Tom Hardy, right? So, but the other smallish update on this is that Michelle Williams has announced that she is, in fact, reprising her role as Anne Wang, and will be, did I pronounce that wrong? I always say it weighing in my head, so let me know if I'm saying that wrong. But anyway, she will be reprising her role as Anne, and all of the outlets that I've been getting this portion of this update from have it as Anne Wang / She-Venom. I don't think they're going that direction. I don't think we will see She-Venom again. At least not in this movie. potentially again going forward in the future, but I just don't see that happening in this movie. That's just me, and we're moving on. Next is a quick follow-up to the Quentin Tarantino movie update that we were talking about a couple of episodes ago, where he's saying he doesn't necessarily want to go out on a science fiction movie, so Star Trek potentially is not going to be his 10th movie, and then he was shooting around musings for a Kill Bill Volume 3. Well, now, in a since deleted video on Twitter, rather, he is saying that he thinks a horror movie would be a great 10th film in his oeuvre, if you will, because he's been getting some pretty strong feedback on the Spawn Ranch, I don't know how to pronounce that, the sequence from his Once Upon a Time in Hollywood film that kind of plays out like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but with a budget, which is what his editor said to him. He said that that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, only with a budget. So Tarantino just might forego both of the previous options that we were putting on the table and go straight into horror for his final movie, which would be also very interesting to see Tarantino's take on horror. Next, we're talking about a new trailer. Addams Family, the new animated movie, dropped a trailer, and it gives us a little bit more of the conflict from the plot in that they are moving from their wherever the original series happened to New Jersey? I don't know, that seems interesting. Seems a little weird, but we're moving on. Next is some other rumblings in Hollywood around other Warner Brothers properties in Batgirl and Supergirl. Heroic Hollywood is reporting that in spite of recent updates around potential Supergirl and like rumor things that are gaining more traction, because there's been apparently some stuff that's come out that they are shooting for a development phase starting in 2020 for Supergirl. According to Heroic Hollywood, they have a source closer to Warner Brothers that says that might be well and good, but the bigger push is for Batgirl, because they do have that script that was written by Christina Hodson. Right now, they are actively looking for a director to direct Christina Hodson's script. So that could put the Batgirl movie in development later this year, and then that puts them at the end of development by 2020, which is when they want to begin development for Supergirl, which is would potentially put them in competition with Marvel, hopefully, eventually, kind of. And then our last piece of movie news is another trailer update, and I'm saving this one for last because it is kind of my favorite trailer from this past couple of weeks, actually potentially from the past couple of months. It is Invader Zim Enter the Florpus, and it's apparently all about pizza. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Now let's talk gaming news, guys. First up, which is probably one of the bigger updates for gaming in this episode, is Splinter Cell. The CEO of Ubisoft, whose name I'm going to really mangle because it's French and it's kind of not easy French. It's Yves Guillemot. Something. There's no N, so it's not Mon. It's M-O-T is how it ends, so it's Guillemot. Said in an interview recently with, I think it was Gamesblog, said that there is going to be Splinter Cell moving forward. What that looks like is still being figured out, because it seems anyway, and this is totally conjecture on my part, that they don't want to be another... that they don't want to continue to be another Metal Gear ripoff, which is kind of how it started a little bit. I know it's based on a Tom Clancy property, but that doesn't mean that it's not kind of a ripoff of other things that we've seen. So definitely interested to see what happens. Rumors have been abounding about the Splinter Cell series over the last month, not the least interesting of which is that they're holding off until they can develop a good property around VR. So that would be actually a fantastic way to play a tactical espionage style game like that. I feel like like, if that is true, if there is some base to that rumor, that's theoretically the best option for them to do. But that's all we've got there. Next, we're talking about the Mortal Kombat 11 patch, and I'm just putting this out there. I think the patch, at least from my experience with it so far, relatively limited over the last 2 days since it has launched. I played, I think, 3 hours last night, and that's it over the last 2 days. But that little bit of time I've given to it is already shown that what they have done has helped significantly. And the big one, because my main, as I've stated previously, is Scorpion in the game. The big one with Scorpion, that his teleport now lands high unless you amplify it, then it's a high mid instead of a mid, I think is a fantastic addition. I feel like that is the stupidest move to have hit as a mid, at least because he comes in from the top. That's like this is a high. This theoretically could be an overhead, but this is a high. So it didn't make any sense that it was a mid. Like, honestly, because the animation is what it is, when I was first learning the character, I wouldn't block when people would just do a standard teleport, because in my head it was like, that should be hitting high. And it didn't hit mid, and I got messed up a couple of times because of that assumption. But still, I feel like that's a great addition. I feel like, honestly, all of the frame updates that they did and all of the additional content that they added with this update is only making it better. And one really weird thing that they did also, when you're playing Combat League now, it used to be you could check out your combat, what do they call it? The combat stats from your previous game. So if you ended the final match and it's like I would be Scorpion versus Liu Kang, it would show like the percentage of mid hits that you landed. It would show the percentage of overheads and lows and highs and special moves and interactables and all of these things. It would give you this percentage readout, but it would also give you your damage ratio, which at times was a little confusing, because there were definitely a few matches that I lost where my damage ratio was higher than the person who beat me, which wouldn't make sense. And I mean, I know there's math involved, and I just am not doing the math properly, but I feel like if you had a higher damage ratio, then you should have done more damage, and therefore you would have won. But that's, I don't know. But they took that out with this update, and now they give you a ranking. So you get out of 4 stars, and theoretically there's 5 ranks. I haven't been below 2 stars, so I don't know if maybe there's a 6th, like if they would give you no stars potentially, but they have 4 stars, so you can have 1 through 4 just regular stars, and then if you did fantastically, if you just handed your opponent his butt on a platter, then they give you a 5th rank, which is all 4 stars lit up and on freaking fire. And it was pretty, that honestly, like that's more fan like easier for normies, I guess, since that's a word that people are using anymore. Easier for normies to understand how well they did, but it's less data for data nerds. And like I said, I didn't do the math to figure out exactly how the hit ratio, or the damage ratio rather, was calculated. But I feel like that was more informative than saying, yay, gold star, but that's just me. And then our last piece of video game news, or gaming news, I guess, specifically, is a little bit more meta. It has to do with loot boxes, and there is now being put into place, there are now being rules by all of the big 3, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, that developers will have to implement a likelihood, what's the word I'm looking for? Odds. That's the word I'm looking for. They have to give you the odds for what potentially is going to be in your loot box. So if you're spending money on a box that you don't know what's inside of it, they have to at least give you the odds that it's going to be a rare item or a common item or whatever. They have to give you those odds. Those rules are not yet set in place, but here in the next potentially month to 3 months, we will see those start rolling out with all 3. And the ESA, the electronic, I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but the ESA, which is one of the governing bodies of the video games industry, is totally backing it and is keeping people updated on the progress for all 3 companies. So that is freaking exciting. And then we're talking comic books, which is going to round out the episode as it does always. And in comic books, we have an interesting thing. A couple of interesting things have happened in the Deceased series so far. But right now, the interesting thing is, well, the one that we're talking about right now for issue number 4, I guess, is Damian becoming Batman. We know this is an Elseworld story, effectively. This does not take place in the main canon, though I don't know what exactly takes place in the main canon anymore, because continuity is just not a thing with DC anymore. You have Green Lantern in his series doing all this craziness, but then still somehow appears in other books that are supposed to be taking place at the same time that he's off gallivanting in space and doing all the stuff and the things. So, continuity just doesn't happen in the overall DC universe anymore. But this is not main continuity because Batman is dead. Spoiler alert. Oh, boy. Because Batman is dead, Batman died in issue number 3, Damian in issue number 4 gets issued a bat suit and becomes Batman. This is the second time that's happened in an Elseworld story for Damian, and I feel like this writing staff is going to handle it better than last time, because we didn't really get much last time. But yeah, I just wanted to pass that over to you guys. How do you guys feel Damian is going to handle taking up the bat cowl, the cape and cowl, if you will? And do you think Damian which side of the split are you on? Do you think Damian is a good character to have added to the Bat family and is therefore going to be a good Batman? Or are you on the other side of that argument? Let's have that conversation. I want to hear the arguments against Damian because I really haven't heard any. So let's have that conversation down in the comments. And that brings us to the end of the episode, guys. What did I miss? What should we talk about next time? Let me know in the comments down below. If, though, you want to go deeper in the conversation, there's a website, generallynerdy.net. There is a Patreon, patreon.com/generallynerdy. All of the things, like, subscribe, share. There's buttons all over the place. Go click those. If you're falling behind and you're in nerd news and you want to catch up, there is another button that's popping up right there to the left of my face to do that. But before we go, click buttons and do things, guys. Always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.